The Galactic Academy floated in the darkness of space like a giant silver flower. It was the most famous school in all the known universe. Students from 100 different worlds came here to learn about each other. They studied science, history, and culture. But today, something different was happening. Floated near the back of the large meeting hall. And his body looked like a glowing jellyfish made of soft blue light. He had never seen violence in his life. His people solved all problems with talking and thinking. As he watched other students fill the room, he felt nervous. Everyone was talking about the same thing. Humans were coming. Pushed his way to the front of the crowd. And his body was made of living rock. He stood 3 meters tall and weighed more than a small vehicle. His people believed they were the strongest beings in the galaxy. He crossed his thick stone arms and made a sound like grinding boulders. "I do not understand why we must study these creatures," said loudly. "I have seen pictures of humans. They are small. They are soft. A child of my people could break one with a single hand." Shivered at these words. She was and her body was made of delicate crystal that sang softly when she moved. She was afraid of almost everything physical. The idea of breaking anything made her feel sick. "Please do not speak of breaking," whispered. "It is not polite." Laughed. The sound echoed through the hall like an earthquake. The large doors at the front of the hall opened. Everyone became quiet. 2 figures walked in and leaned forward to see them better. The humans were small. The male was maybe 1.8 meters tall. He had gray hair cut very short and a face covered with small scars. He walked slowly and carefully, like he was always ready for something to happen. The female was shorter and younger. She had black hair tied back and a smile on her face that seemed strange for such a serious occasion. "Good morning," the female said. Her voice was warm and friendly. "I am Lieutenant Park. I study the history of human weapons. This is Captain. He has served in the Human Defense Force for 20 years. Captain nodded once. He did not smile. His eyes moved across the room slowly, looking at each student like he was counting them. Laughed again. "These are the famous. They look like prey animals." Lieutenant Park's smile did not change. "That is an interesting observation. Many species have thought the same thing when they first met us." "What happened to them?" asked before he could stop himself. The lieutenant's smile grew a little wider. "They learned." The academy director, a tall being made of flowing water held in a magnetic field, floated to the front of the room. "Students, please welcome our guests. This semester, you will learn about species. Humans are the only Class 12 species to achieve space travel. This is a unique opportunity." Raised one crystal arm. "Excuse me, what exactly is a—" Captain spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet but somehow filled the entire room. "A is a planet that actively tries to kill everything living on it." The students looked at each other in confusion. Lieutenant Park stepped forward. "Let me explain. The Galactic Council rates planets by how dangerous they are. Class 1 is perfectly safe. Class 5 is considered difficult. Most spacefaring species come from Class 3 or 4 worlds." She pressed a button, and a hologram of a blue and green planet appeared above her head. "This is Earth. It is rated Class 12. Felt his body flicker with shock. "Class 12? I did not know the scale went that high." "It does now," Lieutenant Park said. "Earth has extreme gravity compared to most inhabited worlds. Our atmosphere contains a gas called oxygen that is actually poisonous to many species. Our planet is covered with predators that hunt and kill. We have natural disasters that destroy entire cities, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, floods, and we have diseases, tiny living things that invade our bodies and try to kill us from inside." Stone Face showed the first sign of doubt. "How do you survive such a place?" Captain looked at him with those cold, steady eyes. "We fight every single day. We have been fighting since the first human opened its eyes. We fight the planet. We fight the animals. We fight disease." He paused. We fight each other. The room became very quiet. That is what you will learn this semester, Lieutenant Park said. How humans survived, and the tools we created to do it. His crystal body was shaking so hard she was making a high ringing sound. Tools? What kind of tools? Weapons, Captain said simply. Notice something strange. When the captain said that word, his hand moved slightly toward his belt. It was a tiny movement, so fast that most students probably missed it, but saw it. It was automatic, natural, like breathing. Tomorrow, Lieutenant Park announced, we will begin our lessons. We will start at the beginning of human history and work our way forward. By the end of this semester, you will understand what a species is truly capable of. As the students began to leave, floated close to, her voice was barely a whisper. I am frightened. Why would any species need to study weapons so much that they have a whole history about them? Did not have an answer. But as he looked back at the two humans standing alone at the front of the empty hall, he noticed something that made his light flicker with unease. Lieutenant Park was still smiling, but Captain was watching the door where had just left, and in those quiet human eyes there was something ancient and patient. Something that had seen 1,000 battles and was ready for 1,000 more. Tomorrow the lessons would begin, and somehow knew that nothing would ever seem quite the same again. The lecture hall was fuller than yesterday. Word had spread through the academy about the strange humans, and students who had not signed up for the course were now squeezing into every available space. Counted at least 15 different species in the room. Lieutenant Park stood at the center of the hall with a holographic display floating behind her. Captain sat in the corner, quiet and still like a stone. His eyes never stopped moving. Today, Lieutenant Park began, we go back to the beginning, before humans had cities, before we had writing, before we had fire. We will start with the very first weapons. She pressed a button, and the hologram showed a rough piece of rock with sharp edges. This is a hand axe. Humans made these about 2 million years ago. We took stones and broke them until they were sharp enough to cut meat and break bones. Made his grinding laugh sound. Rocks. You are teaching us about rocks. My people used such things before your species even existed. This is not impressive. Several students nodded in agreement. They were an ancient race. They had been civilized for millions of years. Lieutenant Park did not seem bothered. You are right. Many species used simple stone tools. There is nothing special about a sharp rock by itself. She changed the hologram. Now it showed a long wooden stick with a stone point attached to one end. This is a spear. Humans used these to hunt animals much larger than themselves, but the spear is also not special. Many species developed spears. What makes humans different is what we did with them. She looked around the room with that constant smile. We threw them. There was confused silence. Threw them asked, what do you mean? I mean we learned to launch these weapons through the air at our targets. We could kill from a distance without ever touching our prey. A student near the front, a creature that looked like a praying mantis made of metal, spoke up. Many species have ranged attacks. We have acid spray. They have sonic blasts. This is not unique. Those are biological weapons, Lieutenant Park said, built into your bodies. Humans have no natural ranged attacks, no claws, no poison, no armor, so we taught ourselves to throw. She turned to Captain. Captain, would you please demonstrate? The old soldier stood up slowly. He reached into a bag and pulled out a small metal ball about the size of a fruit. He weighed it in his hand for a moment. Then his arm moved. Could not follow it. One moment the captain was still. The next moment the ball was gone. There was a loud crack from the other side of the hall. The ball had hit the center of a target dummy 50 meters away with enough force to leave a deep dent. The room was completely silent. Humans, Lieutenant Park said calmly, can throw objects with extreme accuracy at speeds exceeding 150 kilometers per hour. Our shoulder joint evolved specifically for this purpose. We are the only species in the known galaxy with this ability. Stone's face had changed. He no longer looked amused. Our ancestors used this ability to become pursuit predators, Lieutenant Park continued. We could not run faster than our prey. We could not overpower them with strength. So we followed them, for hours, sometimes for days. We walked after animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then we killed them with thrown weapons from a safe distance. She changed the hologram again. It showed a wooden device with a hook at the end. This is an atlatl, a spear thrower. It made our throws even more powerful. With this simple tool, a human could throw a spear hard enough to punch through the hide of animals that weighed 10 times more than the hunter. The metal manta student shifted uncomfortably. This is efficient. Humans are very efficient, Lieutenant Park agreed. But we are never satisfied. We always want to throw harder, faster, further. The hologram changed to show a curved piece of wood with a string attached. The bow and arrow. This weapon could launch a small projectile over 200 meters with killing force. A skilled human could fire 10 arrows in 1 minute. For thousands of years, this was the most deadly weapon on Earth. His crystal body was ringing softly with distress. You said you fought each other. Did you use these weapons on other humans? Captain answered. His voice was flat and matter-of-fact. Yes, constantly. Humans have been killing each other since the beginning. We fought over food, territory, resources, ideas. We formed tribes and nations. We made war a science. A science, repeated weakly. Humans study war like you study mathematics, Captain said. We analyze it, improve it, teach it to our children. Every generation learned from the last and made better weapons. Lieutenant Park showed the next hologram. It was a complex mechanical bow with gears and pulleys. The crossbow, easier to use than a bow, more powerful. A peasant with 2 weeks of training could kill a warrior who had studied combat his entire life. She paused and looked around the room. This is the pattern of human weapons development. We create something deadly. Then we make it easier to use. Then we make it more powerful. Then we do it again, and again, and again. We never stop. Spoke, and for the first time his voice was not mocking. How long did this continue? When did you stop improving? Lieutenant Park's smile finally faded. We have not stopped. We will never stop. It is not in our nature. She shut off the hologram. Tomorrow we will discuss what happened when humans discovered metal and fire and how we learned to combine them. As students filed out of the hall, noticed that no one was talking. Even was silent, his massive stone body moving slowly like he was deep in thought. Looked back at Captain. The old soldier was putting the metal ball back in his bag. Such a simple thing, such a simple motion. And yet that simple throw had crossed 50 meters in less than a second, with deadly accuracy. Finally understood something important. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they had spent 2 million years learning how to kill things stronger than themselves. And they had gotten very, very good at it. The lecture hall was packed beyond capacity. Students were floating in the aisles, clinging to walls, crowding near doors. Representatives from the Academy Council had taken seats in the back row. Everyone wanted to see what the humans would show today. Had arrived early to get a good spot. He noticed that was already there, sitting in the front row. The massive stone being had not spoken since yesterday's demonstration. Something had changed in him. Lieutenant Park walked to the center of the room. Captain took his usual position in the corner, but today even he seemed different, more tense, like he was preparing for something difficult. Yesterday we discussed throwing weapons, Lieutenant Park began. Today we move forward in time. Humans discovered metal about 10,000 years ago. We learned to dig it from the ground, heat it until it melted, and shape it into forms. The hologram showed a bronze sword, gleaming and beautiful. This is bronze, harder than stone, could hold a sharper edge, could be repaired if damaged. With bronze, humans built the first great empires. She changed the image to show rows of soldiers carrying swords and shields. We organized ourselves into armies, thousands of humans trained to fight together, to move as one unit, to kill efficiently and without hesitation. A student raised a tentacle. You said yesterday that you fought each other. Why? Your planet was already dangerous enough. Lieutenant Park nodded. A good question. Humans fight each other for many reasons. Land, water, food, wealth, power, religion, pride. Sometimes we fight simply because we are afraid that someone else might attack us first. That is madness, the student said. Perhaps, Lieutenant Park agreed. But it is our madness, and it drove us to become better at war than any species in the galaxy. The hologram changed to show iron weapons, then steel. Swords became longer, sharper, more elegant in design. We improved our metals. Each new type made better weapons, but blades were only part of our evolution. We also built machines. The image showed a massive wooden structure on wheels, with a long arm like a lever. This is a catapult. It could throw heavy stones over walls to destroy buildings inside. Humans built these to attack other humans who had built walls to protect themselves. Spoke for the first time. You built fortifications, and then you built machines specifically to destroy those fortifications. Yes, we call it siege warfare. One group of humans would spend years building a castle. Another group would spend months building machines to break it. Then the first group would build stronger castles, and the cycle continued. An arms race, said quietly. You were always racing against yourselves. Exactly, Lieutenant Park smiled, but there was something sad in it. Now we come to the most important discovery, the one that changed everything. The hologram showed a black powder in a wooden bowl. Gunpowder, a mixture of simple chemicals that burns very fast and creates expanding gas. Humans discovered it about 1,000 years ago. At first, we used it for celebrations and signals. She paused. Then we learned to put it in metal tubes. The hologram showed a crude metal cylinder with a hole at one end. The first guns were simple, unreliable. They often hurt the person using them as much as the target, but we kept improving them. The images began changing faster. Hand cannons became muskets. Muskets became rifles. Rifles became things that looked like evil metal insects. Rate of fire, Lieutenant Park said. That became the new goal. How many projectiles could we launch in a given time? A bow could fire perhaps 10 arrows per minute. An early musket could fire 3 bullets per minute. She showed a long weapon with a belt of ammunition feeding into it. This is a machine gun. It fires 600 rounds per minute. Silence fell over the room like a heavy blanket. By the time humans reached the modern age, a single soldier could carry a weapon capable of killing dozens of enemies before they could cross a small field. His crystal body was vibrating so hard that other students moved away from her. How many? How many humans died in your wars? Captain answered. His voice was heavy with something old and tired. In our largest war, about 80 years before we achieved space travel, approximately 70 million humans died. In 6 years. The number hung in the air. Several students made sounds of distress. One fainted. 70 million, repeated. He could not imagine such a number. That is more than the entire population of Mai. Yes, Captain said. And that war convinced us to build even worse weapons, because we were afraid the next war might be even larger. Lieutenant Park shut off the hologram. The room was dim and quiet. You have seen our progression. Rocks, spears, bows, swords, guns, machine guns. Each generation made the killing easier, faster, more efficient. But what I have shown you today is not the worst of it, not even close. A student near the back called out in a shaking voice. What could possibly be worse than what you have described? Captain and Lieutenant Park looked at each other. Something passed between them, a shared memory of horrors that they both wished they could forget. "Tomorrow," Captain said slowly, "we will discuss the weapons that should never have been created. The weapons that can kill not just armies but entire cities, entire nations, entire worlds." He looked out at the sea of alien faces, all staring at him with fear and fascination. "Tomorrow, you will understand why the galaxy calls us." The lecture ended. Students left in silence, but stayed behind, watching the two humans pack up their equipment. Lieutenant Park noticed him. "You have a question." "Why are you telling us this?" asked. "Why show us all these terrible things?" Lieutenant Park's smile returned, but it was different now, softer, sadder. "Because secrets are dangerous," she said, "and because you deserve to know exactly what kind of neighbors you have in this galaxy." She walked out, leaving alone with his thoughts and his fear. Before the lecture began, Academy staff made every student sign a document. It said they understood the content might cause psychological distress. It said they could leave at any time. It said medical support would be available. Signed without hesitation. He needed to understand. After 3 days of learning about human weapons, he felt like he was standing at the edge of a dark hole. He needed to see what was at the bottom. The lecture hall was quieter today. Many students had chosen not to come. Those who remained sat in tense silence. Even the mighty stone warrior who had mocked humans on the first day was still and serious. Captain stood at the center of the room. Lieutenant Park sat in the corner this time. Her usual smile was gone. "What I show you today," Captain began, "represents the darkest parts of human nature. These are weapons we created not just to kill but to cause suffering, to create fear, to make death as terrible as possible." He activated the hologram. It showed soldiers wearing strange masks and heavy suits. Chemical weapons. We discovered that certain gases could kill humans in horrible ways. Some burned the lungs. Some destroyed the nervous system. Some caused blisters on every surface of the body, inside and out. A student near the door stood up and left. No one blamed them. "We used these weapons on each other in large wars. Thousands of soldiers died screaming, choking, drowning in their own blood. The gas would drift with the wind, sometimes killing the wrong army, sometimes killing innocent people who lived nearby." "Why?" The question came from somewhere in the middle of the room. "Why would anyone create such things?" "Because we were afraid," Captain said. "We were afraid our enemies would create them first, so we made them and used them, and then made worse ones." The hologram changed to show tiny organisms under a microscope. Biological weapons. We learned to take diseases and make them stronger. We created sicknesses that could spread through entire populations. One small container of the right plague could kill millions. Several more students left, stayed, though his light had dimmed to almost nothing. "Did you use these too?" asked. Her crystal voice was cracked and thin. "Some nations did. Others came close. We eventually signed agreements to ban them, but the knowledge remains. The ability to create them still exists." Captain's face was like stone, but noticed something in his eyes. Pain, deep and old and still bleeding. "Now I will show you the worst weapon humanity ever created." The hologram changed to show a single bomb. It looked simple, almost ordinary. "This is a nuclear weapon. It works by splitting atoms, the smallest pieces of matter. When atoms split in a certain way, they release enormous energy. A single bomb, small enough for one aircraft to carry, can destroy an entire city." He pressed a button. The hologram showed a city from above, then a flash of light, then a massive cloud rising into the sky like a giant mushroom. "This is what happened to a city called Hiroshima in the year 1945. In 1 second, 80,000 humans died. The city simply stopped existing." The room was absolutely silent. But the bomb did not just kill with the explosion. It created radiation, invisible poison that seeped into the ground, the water, the air. People who survived the blast died days later, weeks later, years later. Some had children who were born sick because of what the radiation did to their bodies. "And you used this weapon twice?" asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, on 2 cities, to end a war. Many humans believed it saved lives by ending the war quickly. Many others believe it was the greatest crime in our history. We still argue about it." His voice was different now, humble, almost afraid. "How many of these weapons do humans have now?" Captain looked directly at him. "Enough to destroy every city on Earth, multiple times over. Enough to make our planet uninhabitable for thousands of years." "But why?" demanded. "Why would you build weapons that could destroy your own world?" "Because other humans built them too. If one nation had nuclear weapons and others did not, that nation could threaten everyone. So everyone built them. We called it mutually assured destruction. If anyone used their weapons, everyone would use their weapons. Everyone would die. The fear of total death kept us from using them." Collapsed, medical staff rushed to help her. Other students were crying, shaking, holding each other. "You held your entire species hostage," said. He finally understood. "You pointed weapons at your own world and said if anyone attacks, everyone dies." "Yes," Captain said simply. "For almost 100 years, that is how we maintained peace." A long silence filled the room. Finally, one of the Academy Council members spoke from the back row. "Captain, is there anything worse than nuclear weapons? Anything more destructive?" The old soldier did not answer immediately. He looked at Lieutenant Park. She gave a small nod. "We have theories," he said carefully. "Antimatter warheads, weapons that could crack a planet in half. We have not built them, but we know how we could." The council member sat back, pale and shaking. "I think that is enough for today," Lieutenant Park said softly. She stood and walked to the center of the room. "Tomorrow will be our final lecture. We will explain why we have shown you all of this, and we will explain what humanity wants from the galaxy." Students filed out slowly. Many were crying. Some could not walk and needed help from medical staff. The Academy had never seen anything like this. Remained in his seat. He watched Captain stare at the empty hologram projector. Captain said, "You have seen war, real war, with these weapons." "Yes." "How do you live with it? How do you sleep at night knowing what your species can do?" Captain finally looked at him and saw something unexpected in those tired human eyes. Sadness, guilt, and hope. "I sleep because I know we can also choose not to use them," the captain said. "Every day that passes without nuclear war is a victory. Every child that grows up without seeing what I have seen is a gift. We are not proud of these weapons. We are terrified of them, just like you are now." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "Tomorrow, I will tell you why that terror might be the most important thing in the universe." And then he was gone, leaving alone in the empty hall with the weight of 70 million dead pressing down on his consciousness. The final lecture was not held in the regular hall. The Academy Council had moved it to the Grand Assembly Chamber, the largest room in the entire station. Every seat was filled. Representatives from dozens of worlds had traveled through space just to attend. Cameras floated in the air, broadcasting to billions of beings across the galaxy. Found a spot near the middle, surrounded by students and diplomats and journalists. Sat beside him, the massive stone being somehow looking smaller than before. Had recovered enough to attend, though her crystal body was still cracked in places from the stress. Lieutenant Park walked to the central platform. Captain followed, wearing a formal military uniform covered in medals and ribbons. They looked out at the vast sea of alien faces. "Thank you all for coming," Lieutenant Park began. "Over the past 4 days, we have shown you the history of human weapons. We have shown you things that disturbed and frightened you. Today, we will explain why." She activated a massive hologram that filled the center of the chamber. First, let us show you something different. The image showed a human child laughing while playing with a small animal. Then it changed to show humans building houses together. Then humans creating art, beautiful paintings and sculptures that made several alien observers gasp with appreciation. Humans are not just warriors, Lieutenant Park said. We are also artists, builders, healers, teachers. We create music that makes our souls sing. We write stories that help us understand each other. We build hospitals where we care for the sick and wounded, even enemies who tried to kill us. The hologram showed human doctors treating injured soldiers from both sides of a war. We invented something called the Red Cross. In the middle of our most terrible conflicts, humans agreed that medical workers should be protected, that wounded soldiers should be cared for regardless of which side they fought on. Even as we created weapons of mass destruction, we also created rules to limit suffering. Captain stepped forward. You have seen what we can destroy. Now understand what we choose to protect. The hologram showed human firefighters running into burning buildings, rescue workers digging through collapsed structures to save strangers, scientists working to cure diseases, teachers patiently helping children learn. Humans have a concept called sacrifice, Captain said. It means giving up something precious to protect something else. Humans regularly sacrifice their own lives to save others. We run toward danger when every instinct tells us to run away. We fight not because we love violence, but because we love what violence might take from us. He looked out at the assembled beings. This is the truth about. We did not become dangerous because we enjoy killing. We became dangerous because our world gave us no choice. Every day on Earth was a battle for survival. We fought because the alternative was death. And somewhere along that bloody path, we learned something important. He paused. We learned that the things worth fighting for are also worth protecting. Our families, our friends, our communities, our dreams. We built terrible weapons not because we wanted to use them, but because we were terrified of what would happen to the things we loved if we could not defend them. Lieutenant Park continued. For the past 70 years, humanity has possessed weapons capable of destroying our entire species, and we have not used them, not once. Despite wars, despite conflicts, despite hatred and fear, we have held back, because we finally understood that some weapons are too terrible to use. She looked directly at the cameras. This is our message to the galaxy. Humans are dangerous. We will not pretend otherwise. We have the ability to bring destruction on a scale most species cannot imagine, but we also have the ability to choose, and we choose every single day not to destroy. Stood up, his stone body caught the light as he faced the humans. Then why show us all of this? Why reveal your weapons, your history, your capacity for violence? Captain met his gaze. Because the galaxy deserves to know what kind of neighbor it has. Because secrets breed fear, and fear breeds conflict. We showed you our worst so you would understand our best. We showed you our weapons so you would understand our restraint. He stepped closer to the alien crowd. And because someday the galaxy might face a threat that requires our weapons, a threat that cannot be reasoned with or negotiated with. When that day comes, we want you to know that humanity will stand with you. Not as conquerors, but as defenders. Not as monsters, but as protectors. Lieutenant Park smiled her warm smile again. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day. Now we want to help protect worlds that welcomed us as friends. The chamber was silent for a long moment, then did something that shocked everyone. He bent his massive stone body in a deep bow. I mocked you on the first day, he said. I called you small and weak. I was a fool. You are not weak. You are what the weak become when they refuse to die. You are what monsters fear. One by one, other students stood and bowed. Diplomats rose from their seats in respect. The chamber filled with the sound of many species acknowledging what they had learned. floated forward until he was face to face with Captain. "I was afraid of you," admitted. "I am still afraid a little, but now I understand. You are not dangerous because you have weapons. You are dangerous because you understand violence so completely that you know when not to use it." Captain smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile. "Perhaps that is the most important lesson of all," the captain said. The Academy Council announced their decision that evening. Humanity would be welcomed into the Galactic Council as full members. Their weapons technology would be studied not to spread destruction, but to help the galaxy prepare for threats they had never imagined. As the assembly ended, found himself standing near a window, looking out at the stars. Lieutenant Park joined him. "You know what I find most remarkable about humans," said. "What is that?" "You survived, you created weapons capable of ending your species. You fought wars that killed millions. And after all of that, you still believe in hope. You still reach out in friendship. You still want to connect with other beings." Lieutenant Park nodded. "That is what it means to be human. We carry our darkness with us always, our history of blood and fire and death. But we also carry a light. A stubborn, foolish belief that tomorrow can be better than today, that the next generation can learn from our mistakes, that love is stronger than fear." She looked out at the stars with him. "We came from a world that wanted us dead. We made weapons that could destroy everything we loved. And we chose, against all logic, to build instead of burn, to hope instead of hate, to reach for the stars instead of tearing each other apart." Light glowed brighter than it had in days. "I think I understand now," he said. "The galaxy is lucky to have you as neighbors." Lieutenant Park smiled. "We are lucky to have neighbors at all. For a long time, we thought we were alone in the universe, finding other life, other minds, other beings to share existence with. That is worth more than all the weapons we ever created." Captain appeared beside them. He looked out at the stars, at the galaxy full of life and possibility. "We came from he said quietly. "Now we will help make sure no one else has to die alone." And somewhere out there, among all those distant lights, 100 different species were watching the broadcast and learning what humanity truly was. Not monsters, not conquerors, not destroyers. Survivors, protectors, friends. And perhaps, in a galaxy full of wonders and dangers, that was the most terrifying thing of all.